So the Rose Basketball Club have played in 2 games, and it's not looking good for Lexie Hull.
So the Rose Basketball Club have played in 2 games, and it's not looking good for Lexie Hull. Picture this: a star player traded with high hopes now warming the bench for just 90 seconds a game. When Caitlin Clark heard about Lexie Hull's situation with the Rose Basketball Club, her reaction was nothing short of explosive. Here's what went down. Lexie Hull's current predicament with the Rose Basketball Club has sparked outrage, particularly from WNBA sensation Caitlin Clark, and trust me, this story has.
It's really not looking good for Lexie Hull. Like, I don't know. Imagine going from Christy Sides coaching, where she doesn't really want to play you, and no matter what you do on the court, it doesn't matter because your coach doesn't want to play you, and then eventually your coach figures it out and starts you and plays you 30 minutes a game and your team gets better. I think Lexie Hull is going through something like that right now with the Rose Basketball Club, because Lexie Hull has played in 2 games. She has played about 8 minutes combined.
More layers in an onion. It's really not looking good for Lexie Hull. Like, I don't know, imagine going from Christy Sides coaching, where she doesn't really want to play you, and no matter do on the court, it doesn't matter because your coach doesn't want to play you, and then eventually your coach figures it out and starts you and plays you 30 minutes a game and your team gets better. I think Lexie Hull is going through something like that right now with the Rose Basketball Club, because Lexie Hull has played in 2 games. She has played about 8 minutes combined. Not only that she was being good, let's set the scene. The Rose Basketball Club has played 2 games so far, and for Lexie Hull, these games have been nothing short of a nightmare. We're talking about a grand total of just 8 minutes of playing time across both matches. But here's the kicker: it's not because she's playing poorly. In fact, she's been solid in the limited time she's had on the court. It's like having a Ferrari and keeping it in the garage. Now, you might be wondering what's the real story here. Well, it's a classic case of a square peg in a round hole. The Rose's playing style is built around
that Lexie Hull has been garbage. Lexie Hull has played well. That's the weirdest thing, is that she's actually played well. There is one issue with Lexie Hull, which is why I think she's not playing, but I think she has actually played well.
Round 2 shot creating guards, taking turns to make plays. They run a system where players need to create their own shots, and that's where Hull's struggles begin. It's like being the only vegetarian at a steakhouse. You might be great at what you do, but you're in the wrong place. Like, the problem isn't that Lexie Hull has been garbage. Lexie Hull has played well. That's the weirdest thing, is that she's actually played well. There is one issue with Lexie Hull, which is why I think she's not playing, but I think she has actually played well. Think about the Rose's current lineup. You've got Chelsea Gray, who's basically a magician with the ball, sometimes throwing passes that make you wonder if she's actually trying to pass or just freestyling. Brittany Sykes and Kat Copper are their 2 all players who can create their own shots, like artists painting on a blank canvas. Then there's Air Stevens and Angel Reese, whose primary jobs are to roll and seal in pick-and-roll situations. It's a very specific system, like a well-oiled machine, where every part has its purpose. And on the roster with Lexie are Chelsea Gray, Brittany Sykes, Collier Copper, and Reese and Asa Stevens. Let's break down what happened in their recent game. Chelsea Gray had 6 assists, but also 3 turnovers. Some of those behind her back moves were so wild, even her teammates look surprised. It's like watching a jazz musician. You're never quite sure if the next note is intentional or improvised. The team only attempted 10 3-pointers total, which in modern basketball is like going to a party and barely touching the snack table. The frustration gets even more real when you look at Hull's journey. She came from a situation with Chrissy Sid's coaching where she had to prove herself day in and day out. Eventually she earned her stripes and was playing 30 minutes per game, helping her team improve. Now she's barely seeing enough court time to break a sweat. It's like finally getting your driver's license only to have your car taken away. The Rose team lost both games, and Lexie Hull did not get much of an opportunity to play at all. Now, what's particularly interesting is how the Row run their offense. Everything, and I mean everything, goes through their high pick-and-roll system. Whether it starts with a handoff, a cut, or some other action, it all leads to the same place: a high screen and someone trying to get to the basket. For Hull, who's more comfortable spotting up the 3 and playing lockdown defense, it's like being asked to speak a foreign language without any lessons. A trade that brought Hull to the Rose is looking more and more like a miscalculation. The Kate Martin for Lexie Hull swap. Many experts are now saying Hull would have been better off with the LA team. Why? Because their style of play would have complemented her strengths better. It's like trading a surfer to a ski team. Sure, they are both athletes, but the skills don't quite translate. Let's talk about what Hull actually brings to the table. She's a 3-and-D specialist, which in most modern basketball teams is like having a golden ticket. She can knock down open threes and play tough defense. In her limited minutes, she's shown exactly that. She came in full court press. The opposing team's best guard did a solid job, didn't turn the ball over and even hit a 3, but in the Rose's system, that's like having a great parallel parking skill in a town with only pull-through spots. The contrast in playing styles becomes even more apparent when you look at other teams take the miss. For example, their whole game plan is about quick passing and shooting as much as possible. It's basketball at its most exciting. Pass, shoot. Put Hull on that team and she'd probably thrive like a fish finally being put back in water. But the row, they're all about that half-court offense, grinding it out possession by possession. This situation has created a real conundrum for Hull. She's essentially caught between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, she's making good money somewhere between $100,000 to $250,000 and getting to be part of a professional team. On the other hand, she's not getting the opportunity to showcase her skills or develop her game. It's like being paid to be a backup singer but never getting to hold the microphone. The Rose's offensive strategy is particularly challenging for someone with Hull's skill set when they do shoot threes, which isn't often. They are almost always off screens with players pulling up. They don't do spot-up threes, which is Hull's specialty. It's like having a great three-point shooter but running an offense from the 1990s. What makes the situation even more fascinating is the team's overall approach to offense. In their recent game, they actually shot 9 fewer shots than their opponents, even with several offensive rebounds. That's not just a coincidence, it's a deliberate style choice. They are not trying to get into a shooting match with anyone. They want to control the tempo, work the ball inside, and win in the trenches. For a player like Hull, who could thrive in a more up-tempo shooting-friendly system, it's like being a speedboat in a canal. The defensive end is where things get particularly ironic. Hull is actually doing everything right. When she gets her chances, she's showing she can defend at a high level even against top opposition. But in the Rose's system, being a good defender isn't enough. You need to be able to create your own shot. On the other end, it's like being a great goalkeeper but being required to score goals too. This brings us to an interesting point about player development and team building. The Row clearly have their system and they are sticking to it, but at what point does a team need to consider adapting their style to make use of all their talent, or is it entirely on the players to adapt? These are questions that coaches and general managers grapple with all the time, but rare do we see such a clear example of this dilemma playing out in real time. What really got people talking was Caitlin Clark's reaction to this whole situation. When Clark saw how Hull was being utilized, or rather not utilized, she couldn't hold back her frustration, and honestly, who can blame her? As someone who's revolutionized college basketball with her own unique playing style, Clark understands better than most the importance of being in a system that maximizes your strengths. The thing about professional basketball that often gets overlooked is how much team fit matters. You can be an incredible player, but if you're in the wrong system, it's like trying to run underwater. This is exactly what we're seeing with Hull right now. She's got the skills, that's not up for debate. She's shown it before with the Fever, especially during that crucial 15-game stretch post-Olympics, where she really found her rhythm. Speaking of the Fever, let's talk about Hull's time there. She was getting DNPS, did not play regularly, but when she did get her chance, she showed flashes of what she could do.